As you're building Zaps, you'll often need to pull in additional data that Zapier can't find in your trigger or action steps. If you find yourself constantly adding several search steps to get all the information you need, you should consider using Zapier Tables to store and reference your commonly used data instead. Hi, I'm Tom from XRay.tech, the workflow company. At XRay, we use no-code providers like Zapier and Airtable to help our clients organize their data and save time on repetitive processes. If you'd like to learn more about designing, building, and maintaining automated workflows, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel, and turn on those notifications too. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can create tables in Zapier and then quickly reference them in any Zap or interface. I'll also cover the situations where you may want to use a dedicated database app like Airtable instead. Whether you stick with Zapier's built-in tables or a separate database app, organizing your data into easily searchable formats will help you design and build much more efficient automations. So let's get started. First, let's take a quick look at what Zapier tables are and how they work in general. Zapier tables are essentially simple spreadsheets that you can use to store data. For example, right here, I've got a Zapier table that I've made to track internal company projects. You can see several field types for storing and displaying text, numeric data, dates, and more. You can create, update, and delete your tables from this tables icon on Zapier's left-hand menu. You can also create a public link to share this table with anyone, even if they don't have a Zapier account, which is pretty cool. Based on your sharing settings, your collaborators may be able to add or edit data from that link too, so be careful who you share it with. Like tables and databases in other apps, it's easy to integrate your Zapier tables into your automations so you can look up essential data. In this Zap, I've added a search step to find projects based on the project name field. You can use the find or create action if you expect to only find one record and want to create a record if it doesn't already exist. You can also search for several records and return them as line items if you'd like. In the test data, we can see the matching record in all of its fields. We can also use all of this data in the next steps of the automation. Alternatively, you could also add buttons to your table that launch automations when you click on them. When these automations run, they'll use all of the data present in the current record. So when I click Send to send a summary of this project, I'll see all of its pertinent details in the Tutorials Slack channel. In addition to accessing them directly or using them in automations, you can also connect tables to Zapier interfaces. In this interface, the same projects table can be viewed and edited as a Kanban view or as a more traditional table. We can also add records to the table through this form component in the interface. Editing permissions can be set for each component in your interface, so you can ensure that users can only edit the appropriate records. You can try out Zapier tables for free with any Zapier plan, but you're limited to 10 tables and 100 records per table. You can unlock 100 tables with 100,000 records each for $20 a month on top of your existing Zapier subscription. That covers the basics of Zapier tables. But before I dive into more detail here, I want to quickly clear up one possible point of confusion. Zapier tables are not the same thing as the lookup tables that you can create through a Zapier formatter action. Lookup tables only allow for key value pairs, meaning they're limited to one label and one data point. There are no field types or other database features available in lookup tables. They're also attached to whatever Zap they're built within and cannot be referenced from any other Zap. Lookup tables are useful when you need to create a variable that can change to several different values based on a particular condition. For instance, you might want to have a message in your Zap that changes based on the day of the week. In your lookup table, each key would be the day of the week, and the value would be the related message. Data like this wouldn't need to be referenced elsewhere, so it would be totally suitable for a formatter lookup table. But for anything more advanced, you'll need to use Zapier Tables or a dedicated database app like Airtable. Now let's take a closer look at how to create and use Zapier Tables. To get started, let's create a new table. To make a Zapier table, click on Tables in the left-hand menu, then click on Create. In this pop-up, you'll see a gallery of templates that you can use to get started. You can choose a blank table if you prefer to start from scratch. Alternatively, you could import data from Airtable, Google Sheets, or a CSV. I'll go with a blank table for now, which I'll turn into a projects table. Once you've created your table, you'll see a pretty standard spreadsheet with 3 default fields. To edit an existing field, just click on its name and select Edit Field. There, you can change the field name and type, adjust the text alignment, and add an icon. I'll keep this first field as a text field, but I'll change its name to Project Name. Then I'll change the second field to a long text field called Project Description. Finally, I'll make the third field a date field called Due Date. To add more fields, just click on the plus sign to the right side of the table. I'll add a few more fields to round this project's table out, like Status and Project Manager. Now that I've got all the basic fields that I want, I'll import some records so we have some test data to work with. To import records into a Zapier table, click on the 3 dots on the top right and select Import Data. Then, upload a CSV of your choice. With some data in place, we can see how filters and views work. Click on this icon to see all of your views. A view is a saved configuration for viewing your data. You can apply filters to a view so that it only shows a certain subset of your data instead of every single record. The default view begins without any filters applied. I'll add a new view and I'll call it Marketing. Then I'll select the view. To begin, it displays all records just like the default view, but I want it to just display projects where the team is set to marketing. So I'll click on this filter icon, click Add Filter, and configure it the way I want. Now the table only displays marketing projects. To switch back to the default view or any other view, just click on the Views icon and select the view you want to see. For now, that's pretty much all you need to know about creating and editing tables in Zapier. Your options for field types, filters, and views in Zapier tables aren't nearly as robust as what you'll get in Airtable. Stick around to the end to hear the big advantages that Airtable has over Zapier tables at the time of this recording. However, Zapier tables can at least get the job done for sorting and filtering your data, and of course connecting your data to multiple Zaps. In the future, Zapier is likely to add more features and options to help make your data more useful and accessible. Of course, whenever you're creating a table for your company, one of your primary concerns will likely be sharing and collaborating on your datasets. Luckily, sharing tables in Zapier is very simple. To begin, open up the table you want to share. Then click on this share icon in the top right. If your Zapier account is part of an organization, you can set permission levels to each person at your company, or set permissions for the entire organization. You can choose between Builder, Editor, View Only, and No Access. Click on Learn More here for an explanation of each permission level. We've also included a summary of that page in this video's resources board linked in the description down below. In short, builders can do anything. Editors can do anything except create related automations, and view-only users can just see the data. If you're working with an individual account or want to share the table with people outside of your organization, you can create a public link instead. However, the only permission options for a public link are Editor and View Only. Once you've created a public sharing link, you can click on the link icon to copy it to your clipboard. When someone opens the link, they'll be able to see your table even if they don't have a Zapier account or aren't logged in. You can also share specific views by selecting the menu attached to that view and clicking Share View. From there, you'll see similar sharing options as before. Much like the field types and views, Zapier tables have fewer features and much less granularity when it comes to sharing data. However, if you're looking to add a simple database to your workflow without introducing another app to the mix, Zapier tables can definitely be a good choice. Next, let's take a look at how you can connect your tables to your Zaps. There are 2 ways to approach automating your Zapier tables. The first is to treat them like any other spreadsheet or database that you might already use in your Zaps. You can trigger your Zaps to run whenever a record is updated or added to a specific table. You can add actions to create or edit records, and you can add search steps to find data that's already there. However, there's another option for automating your Zapier tables that looks a little bit different than your standard Zap. When we were setting up our table, you may have noticed that there's a field type called button. When you add a button field, every record will include its own button that you can click on to launch a Zap. When the Zap runs, it will pull in all the data from the record that you clicked on. To configure a button in a Zapier table, go to your default view and add a new field. Currently, you can't add Zaps to any buttons created in custom views. Choose buttons as the type, give your button any name you want, and style it however you'd like. The type of button field will default to Trigger Zap, which is what you'll want to use. There's also an option to use buttons to resume an automation, but this is an experimental feature that we won't be covering in this video. Let us know in the comments down below if you'd like to see a video about this in the future. You can leave the default button state to enabled. Disable button when clicked is a good option if you want each automation to only run once per record. Otherwise, leave it unchecked. Then create your field. Initially, your button will just say Setup Button, but that's fine. Select the field again and choose the Zaps tab. From here, you can create a Zap that will run whenever the button is clicked. Building this Zap works just like any other Zap, so I'll skip to the finished automation. This is a simple Zap that sends an update in Slack about the selected project, with some basic information about the due date and status. Make sure to publish your automation and turn it on when you're done. Otherwise, the button won't work. Then, go back to your table. You should now see the correct label on your button. Click it to test it out. When I click the button, I see a message in Slack, just as expected. Directly connecting your tables to Zaps is easily one of the most useful aspects of tables. If you're a Zapier builder, first and foremost, tables will give you a lot of easy ways to organize your data and keep everything in one place. You can take tables and automations even further by connecting them to interfaces, another Zapier feature that was introduced somewhat recently. With interfaces, you can create a simple web-based UI where you can store links, forms, tables, and more. You can even add an AI chatbot to a Zapier interface. Check out our previous video to learn more about that. If you're adding a form to your interface, you'll need to connect it to a Zapier table. Then, any responses from your form will automatically populate the table. To get started, create a new interface and add a new page. Then, add a form component to that page. Once you add a form component, you can either pick an existing table to connect it to or create a new one. I'll connect mine to the projects table. When you connect an existing table, Zapier will automatically include a form question for each of the fields in the table. You can click on the form to edit it. You can add or remove fields or just change their text. You can also add placeholder text here or set certain fields to required. Once you're finished, open up your page and test out your form. When you submit a response, a corresponding record should be added to your table. Using tables in Zapier interfaces can be a great way to gather data from your team or anyone on the web. But you're not limited to just collecting data with interfaces. You can also set up table and Kanban components. These are both different ways of displaying existing Zapier tables. Since a table component in an interface is pretty similar to a standard Zapier table, let's focus on the Kanban component. Pick a page in your Zapier interface, or create a new one. Then add a component and choose Kanban. Connect your Kanban component to an existing table. I'll choose the projects table once again. Then pick a field to group by. This has to be a drop-down field, so I'll choose status. Next, you can choose which columns to display and in which order. Finally, you can pick the fields that you'll use as the title and description for each card. Then, click Connect Data to finish setting up your Kanban board. You may have to wait a moment for your data to load. Once it's ready, open up the page to see the Kanban board in action. You should be able to drag and drop these cards between columns. Note that doing so will update whatever field you're using to group your cards. So in this case, I'm actually updating the status of each project in my table by moving them around my interface. Back in the interface editor, you can control user permissions. You can set whether or not users can drag cards, create records, edit records, or delete records. Each of these settings can be managed separately. Under Actions, you can also configure automations that will run whenever a card is created, updated, or dragged into a certain column. Then, you can build a Zap that will launch when that specific event occurs. While Zapier might not be the first app you think of when it comes to building an interface, it can be a good choice for Zapier Power users and teams that rely heavily on Zaps already. And with constantly expanding features for Kanban boards, forms, and more, Zapier interfaces are quickly becoming a genuinely useful tool. Although they still have a ways to go before they can stand shoulder to shoulder with the likes of Airtable. Ultimately, Airtable still offers much more robust database and interface options than Zapier. This isn't very surprising, considering that Airtable is, first and foremost, a database application. In contrast, Zapier's primary focus is on building no-code automations, a domain where it truly excels, being widely recognized as one of the largest automation providers in the world. In short, Airtable has more of everything that you might want from a database. It has more view types, with a variety of options like Kanban boards, timelines, galleries, and more. These diverse views cater to different project management styles and data visualization needs, making it easier to manage and interpret your data, especially for enterprise-grade users. Airtable also includes linked records, which is a vital feature for connecting your data and avoiding redundancy. Linked records allow you to associate records in one table with records in another table. It's particularly useful for maintaining consistency across different parts of your databases and teams. For instance, you can create a single team directory table and reference it in various areas like project management, task management, and client onboarding. This not only cuts down the redundancy, but also ensures data integrity across your workflows. Airtable also provides a formula field type, which lets you populate the contents of a field with a formula. This feature is incredibly useful for automatically calculating values, reformatting text, and adjusting dates and times based on other data in your table. Airtable's form views are also much quicker to set up than a form component in a Zapier interface, and Airtable's interfaces offer much more customization than Zapier's. And finally, when it comes to collaboration, Airtable provides more granular control over what users can see and edit. This level of detail in permission settings can be crucial for managing team access to sensitive or critical data. The main downside of Airtable is that it's another application to manage, and unlocking all of its features requires a paid plan and a learning curve. However, if your data needs are relatively simple and your primary focus is on automations, Zapier's integration with its own Zapier Tables might be sufficient. Zapier Tables, while not as feature-rich as Airtable, offer a convenient way to have your automations and data in a single app, streamlining your workflow processes. This can be particularly useful if you're building an automation for a client and want to simplify the information they need to access the finished product. If you build your workflow using Zapier Tables and interfaces, they'll only need one login to access everything, and that can make things much simpler for less technical users. But for most use cases, I'd recommend using Airtable as your data storage and Zapier for automation. However, no-code builders should always be aware of the tools at their disposal, so I encourage you to try out Zapier Tables for yourself to see how they might fit into your workflows. And just remember, no matter where you start, you can always migrate to another database with a simple CSV export. Zapier continues to expand its platform, moving beyond automation into data management, AI, interfaces, and more. And Zapier Tables might not be unseating Airtable anytime soon, but they're a welcome addition to Zapier that can be useful in many situations. Give them a shot and let us know what you think in the comments down below. If you've enjoyed this video, prove you're human, like and subscribe for more automation tips every single week. If you'd like to learn more about low-code automation and workflow design, follow us on LinkedIn, Twitter, or Facebook, and you can find all of our content on our website at xray.tech. You can check all those links in the resources board down below, and as always, find your focus and stay in flow. Trying to future-proof yourself? Start designing the way your team works with no-code tools, automation, and AI. In X-Ray's Workflow Designer course, we'll show you how to break down every part of a process to find the best opportunities for automation, and how to integrate those automations into your team's daily work. You'll learn how to create time for your entire team, get more reliable results, and give everyone a newfound clarity and confidence in their work. Just go to this URL to learn more. The entire package includes over 2 hours of premium video content, challenging example projects, and tons of helpful resources. The course costs just $250 and gives you lifetime access to a Slack community of workflow designers building systems in dozens of different industries. Space is limited, so join the free waiting list today to get notified as soon as the course is live later this year. Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you soon in our Workflow Designer course.